screen. Okay. All right. So today we're going to take something that is in the news and has recently been made available on the FBI Vault website. So it's publicly available information. And I've downloaded it, and we're just going to throw it into Copilot and ask some questions. And as I start to set all that up, Chief Lukens is going to talk a little bit about the use case and why it matters and how it's applicable.
So oftentimes you'll have people in a community that will come into the police department or want to file a complaint. And, we're taking this example with the Epstein case because it's just readily in the news and readily available. So you'll get somebody that suddenly believes, suspects, or is concerned that their elected officials within their municipality or whatnot are involved in that case. And they come to the police department and they want to file some sort of complaint, and they say, I expect some sort of investigation to be involved. And in many cases, this can become political because they might be reaching out to city council members. City council members are reaching out to the city managers reaching out to the chief and saying, hey, you need to figure this out. We need to do something about this. This person's concerned. And the answer is, well, the FBI is investigating that case, probably. But the other answer was, well, we want to be able to trust our police department. We need to be able to trust our city and know that these people aren't implicated in the case. And somebody may feel or suspect that they are, or maybe they've heard some rumor or somebody has said something. And so they want the police department to do something about it. The problem is this is an incredibly heavy lift for the police department to try and get involved in an FBI case, which likely is not going to occur unless they have relevant facts to add to the case. And so the police department's going to have just the same accessibility and information as anybody else in the lay public that has been released. And with that being said, you can all of a sudden use Copilot to go in and gather some information, at least find out, are any of the names of our elected officials involved in this case? Have they even been implicated? Have they even been discussed? Has anything about our elected officials been brought up? So that way we can at least tell the individual, we have looked into this. We've pulled down all of these documents. You can get these off of the FBI website. And this is the information that we have. And here are some of the names that you can look at. But at onset of what we're looking at, what we see, none of our city council members have been implicated in this case. And suddenly we have an answer which maybe takes 5 or 10 minutes versus trying to tell somebody, we'll look into it, or we're going to ask, and they're going to say, well, check with the FBI. Then we say, well, we checked with the FBI, but they can't give us any more information. And that doesn't help people that already are suspicious of the police or not trusting. So Dave, take it away.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, so it's not about the names and what showed up in here, because these people could just be mentioned ancillary to anything in the document. Their name just happened to be there. Some of these are just scanned articles, right? This is just evidence that was gathered and that has recently been made public. The point is, though, is that a couple of things. One, the prompt was, provide me a list of people's names listed in any of these documents. And as you saw there in the video, I was adding, and I deleted a couple of them because Copilot currently has a limitation of 20 documents at a time. So you could iterate over this if you had more than 20 documents. And some of these documents are lengthy. But to Phil's point, I loaded them in there. I asked a very simple prompt, and away it went, and found me quite a bit of information listed out by the particular document list that it was in. And you can go to these documents and kind of look what each one of them are. So it brings you to that reference. We'll let this one open just to give you a sense of the kind of information that we're looking at here. So heavily redacted.
And just note, Dave, that's a 44-page document, that right. One document. So when we're talking, when you add 20 of these together, hundreds of pages we're dealing with here. This is difficult for a human to just sit and scan through. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Just the length, the complexity of it. And some of these are scanned articles, right? And so it's reading all of that because it's using OCR capability to detect and pull out the names. Of course, remember, AI can get it wrong, right? Just like a person could get it wrong. So, if you're going to do anything with this, you probably want somebody to do some verification depending on the level of risk and impact involved in your list being entirely accurate. But in terms of getting a start point to really understand something, I got information pretty quickly out of a large volume of data, relatively fast, right? And the accuracy level, of course, you have to go and verify and validate for yourself, but it does a pretty good job. So then let me jump back to Copilot, and then I could start asking other questions, like provide a list of all locations by city, county, state, or country listed in the documents. And I probably didn't have to put listed in the documents. It already knows the context of what we're asking about. But I can let it run off and do that again. And again, this is 20 different documents that are multi-page that it's scanning through. Takes a lot of time for a person to read all of that and understand the context. So it's starting to provide me answers already. It's not done, but just in part 1 of 8, it's already spitting out all of these different states that are mentioned. Looks like that's the only document in the whole set that has locations mentioned.
And that's again huge, because when you have that citizen complaint that's saying, I feel like our elected officials are involved in this mess, you're able to come back and say, well, our city and is not even involved in the list. Like we've gone through the documents. You can see that we're not in that case. And this really can help ease some of the political tensions that can be occurring in little communities where people are suspicious of some of the behaviors that's happening with their elected officials. And of course, this doesn't have to be this document. There could be other things that are going on that you would be able to use this Copilot for to be able to aid in those investigations, which would just make it a lot easier for transparency. And that's what police departments are really trying to gear toward in the coming years.
Yeah, and I would call your attention to that because it's been scanned and essentially understands the context and the content of what you've loaded, it starts to provide you some prompts that you can just ask based on just clicking on these, right? So list any organization mentioned in the documents is one, right? So it populates it into the prompt window, and you can run that as well. And we'll let that run and generate, and then we'll do one more and then wrap it up, because I think the point's made, but it really does help you to get through information. And think about using this in an investigation where you've got a lot of information, cold cases, and you're trying to go back and understand all the people that were mentioned, right? So FBI, Metro PCS, Verify, Homeland Security, Singular. I've gone through and looked at some of this data. So all of these various phone providers and service providers are part of subpoenas that are in there, and the title of who the subpoena was submitted to shows up. And then lastly here, let's ask about email addresses.
And then after that, Dave, maybe you would be able to just show the FBI website that we downloaded this from, that anybody could go to, just so they can see the massive amount of documents, et cetera, that are involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and we'll probably do another video on this same concept, but showing you how to dive into a cold case. But this is a great surface level type of investigation that will show you how how easy it is to obtain this information for those everyday quick complaints that we need to be able to put to rest in short fashion. But as you were saying about the cold cases, imagine when you have a cold case that hasn't been looked at in 10 years, and you can scan all those documents in. And now we can look at that, and we can start really trying to dissect and analyze that cold case for new leads, clues, ideas, people to reach out to, things that were in the past too difficult to connect all of the dots can now be connected in seconds. And that really gives us a great leading. But go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a point here. So I ran email addresses earlier and got a pretty, not a robust list, but a dozen or so email addresses. So it's interesting when you think about how this large language model processes work. So we started out with a list of 20 documents where we asked our original question about names. And several of these had no names in them. So then we asked an unrelated question about locations, and we got several locations. And then when we got to this one here and we said, what about organizations? It only gave us document 19 and 20. And then when I said, what about email addresses that are mentioned? It appears that in context, because of my prompt was this, what about email addresses, that it assumes that I'm only asking about documents 19 and 20, and it says, hey, there are no email addresses in this snippet. So when you see things like that, again, that's the human in the loop, making sure that you're checking and understanding, oh, it only searched those two is what it appears. So then you probably want to come back and say something like, please scan all 20 documents.
You're typing, I'm not seeing. Oh, there it is.
Sorry.
No, with that being said, though, it's all comes back to these command prompts. And even when you're doing this, whether it's for the smallest of cases to the biggest of cases, you've got to be able to look back and go, does that make sense? Is there going to be no emails in, 500 pages worth of documents? And then, oh, I see, it only said based on part 20 and part 19. So that is really tremendously valuable because command prompts are everything. This system is a linear system, and it only thinks in a linear fashion. And if you start to try and take it outside of that loop, it's going to struggle. But for the most part, what you need to make this easier, you're able to do that.
Yeah, and warts and all, right? We're not trying to hide anything or make anything sound perfect, but it's still only picking up the last two documents. So I would probably go back, reload, start over, and ask the question again, especially knowing, like we think about cold cases, you probably know, hey, there's email addresses in there, and I'm trying to just pull out a whole list. So you just want to iterate through that. So I'll stop sharing there, or not stop sharing, but jump over here to a web browser. Open this up, and then the website is FBI Vault. And there's the Epstein ones, but this FBI Vault, there's all kinds of information here that you can go through and search the site. There's anti-war things, public corruption, organized crime, things that have been released under FOIA. This is a great place to go and grab data and just try it out because it's already publicly available information. You don't have to worry about leakages or exposing anything that you don't want to expose or whatever, or messing around with any of your own data. So great place to go try out some of this. And a lot of these are those heavily redacted documents, so to give you an idea on how it works on those types of forms and things that you get. So with that, I am going to stop sharing